The Richie Allen Show, live on Talk Radio Europe, Fab Radio International, and DavidIke.com. And now, live from Manchester, England, here is Richie Allen.
Our first guest, our only guest today. He is one of the world's most respected researchers and scholars on the occult and religious philosophy, and a lot more besides. Like I mentioned earlier on, he's been researching and writing about not only the hidden foundations of Western religious beliefs and secret societies, but also our origins, where we came from, how we came to be as well. As you might remember, the last time he was on, he was talking about some difficulties he's had over the last few years with his old website. The website to find him on today is quite simply jordanmaxwellshow.com. jordanmaxwellshow.com. That is the only, at the moment, official website for Jordan Maxwell. The other website, the old jordanmaxwell.com, is not at the moment under his control, because people that were looking after that on his behalf basically stabbed him in the back, stole the website along with a lot more besides. That was a few years ago, and he's still battling with that. So you need to go to jordanmaxwellshow.com. But look, without any further ado, let's welcome back to the programme our great friend, and it's an absolute joy, Jordan Maxwell. Welcome back. How are you?
Well, thank you, Richie. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I'm fascinated by your show, and I love being on it. So I appreciate that you let me come back on again. Thank you.
It's an honour. And I want to just say, Jordan is going to join us once a month at the beginning, maybe more later on, but once a month in the first week of that month. So whichever day suits Jordan, in the first week of the month, he's going to do that from now on in. And I want to sponsor for that one programme. So I want somebody to sponsor that one show a month. And I want you to contact me at richie@richieallenshow.com, or Aaron, preferably Aaron. That's Aaron, Aaron, at richieallenshow.com. If you want to sponsor the special show with Jordan once a month, we'll be listening to offers for that. The money will go to Jordan. It won't be going to me. It'll be going to Jordan. It's as simple as that. My friend, do you want to give us an update before we move on and talk about the many things we're going to talk about? Do you want to give us an update on that nightmare situation that you were dealing with the criminal behaviour that led to your life's work, all your materials, your website being taken away? What's the latest?
Well, we're almost there. We've been fighting for 4.5 years in court. We've got three different cases, two with the state and one with the federal government. And I think it's going to be pretty much over real soon. We're looking at maybe September, late September, early October. Hopefully the federal court will make its ruling, and then I will get my life back that was stolen from me. I will get my website back, my money and my emails and my products and everything else that was taken from me by my one-time webmaster. And the way, it's very simple. When you have a webmaster, you have to give him the username and the password. Well, as soon as I give that username and password to somebody, they can go into that website immediately. Now that they have the password and the username, they could go in and change the whole thing. They can go in behind the scenes and change the ownership. They can redirect the money from the bank account. They can redirect the emails to themselves. They can now present themselves to the world as Jordan Maxwell. All the emails come to them. All the money comes to them. They can copyright my materials behind my back, go to Washington, D.C., and copyright all my materials so that they own everything. They can trademark my name. They can just rip an old man, 75 years old, they can rip off an old man big time, take everything he's ever worked for, everything he's ever done, and just help themselves and take it over, and there's nothing you can do.
I remember when you first told me about this a couple of years ago, when it first happened a few years ago. I was always under the impression that if you had been anybody else but you, they would have dealt with it. The authorities would have dealt with it very quickly. But of course, you're Jordan Maxwell, and the authorities don't like Jordan Maxwell very much because like one or two other people that I could mention, but I won't at the moment, you've been saying and doing things which they don't like very much. So they weren't going to help you, were they? But if you were Billy Maxwell, who worked in the local fishmongers, or if you were working in the local supermarket, they would have got your website back. I have no doubt in my mind, because it is obvious fraud, and it's theft, and it's everything wrong with it's every bad thing that people can do. They've done that to you, and again, if you weren't you, I think it would have been dealt with. But it's great news that after the struggle that you've had, that it's going to come to a good conclusion. I'm delighted to hear that, and I'm delighted that you're going to be coming on the programme in the beginning anyway, once a month. That's going to be fabulous, and you will obviously do whatever you want in that show and talk about whatever you want, and I'll just sit here and listen, because that's what I love doing. Tonight, it's up to you now. I can tell you without a word of a lie, I've already had 24 tweets with comments and with questions. Now you can take some of those, or you don't have to, or you can talk about something that's on your mind. What's been on your mind since we last spoke? What are you thinking about?
Well, my mind is going in 100 different directions. Even though I'm 75 years old, my body doesn't want to move, but my mind is going 100 miles an hour, because I've always used my brain. So I'm continually doing research, writing, talking to people. I'm as active intellectually as I have ever been. But there's so many subjects and the biggest problem I face when doing anything, let me explain something to you. When you're talking to the public, as I am now, you have to be very, very careful about the things you cannot tell the public. There are certain things you cannot say in the public. You cannot divulge any certain materials. I mean, they call it for national security. I don't care what they come up with to keep you from, it's a censorship, so to speak. But there are certain things you cannot say in the public. Now, if you are in a private club, and you can talk to your private members in your club, you can say anything you want in America, because that's protected freedom. It's called, there's a term for it in court language. It's protected speech, because you're just talking to the people who are members of your club, and therefore you're not talking to the public. However, when you talk to the public, the government is authorized to protect the public. Therefore, they can come in and shut you down, put you in prison. They can do anything they want to keep your mouth shut when you're talking to the public. So that's been my problem. There's so much I would love to talk about that I've known for many years, but I cannot talk about things which are very, very controversial about government, religion, commerce, how the world really works. That's very dangerous today, to know too much, because you can find yourself dead somewhere knowing too much. And so I've watched over the years and seen way too much. And it just hurts me that I cannot talk publicly about the things which I have experienced seen with my own eyes, heard from the experts. But there is, in point of fact, materials and things you cannot talk about in public. So that's been my problem. I'm walking on a very razor's edge when I'm talking on a radio show.
And
you gotta watch what you say.
You got to watch what you say. It's interesting that, because when I speak to Americans are very proud of the First Amendment, very proud of it. And I've had Americans on this program before, nice people, but misinformed, because they would say, oh, it's great, in America, because we have the First Amendment and we don't have all these freedom of speech issues that you have in some countries in Europe. And when they say that to me, I think to myself, God, they're so badly informed. You're so controlled. The First Amendment doesn't mean anything. Well, it doesn't anymore, I don't think. No.
There is a perimeter in America that is protected under freedom of speech. Yes, you can talk about anything, and I do mean anything. You can talk about anything you want on the radio, say anything you want in public, and you're going to pay for it. You're going to get a knock on the door from the federal government. You're going to be arrested. You can, well, go on out and talk all you want. It's freedom of speech. But watch what's going to happen to you. Now, if you happen to be famous and you talk publicly about something you're not supposed to, well, you have the right to speak in public, and you can say whatever you want. But if you're famous, it's going to be very quiet. There will be a knock on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. Come with us. Get in the car, please. You will then be taken to the SS and the Gestapo, and they will see to it that you disappear somewhere, and that's it. Nobody will ever hear from you again. But there won't be any big brouhaha about it. Won't be any big to-do about it. It's just that you will be dealt with accordingly by the powers that be. And I should think in Europe you would know something about that under the Nazi regime. You can go out publicly and talk about Hitler if you wish, but God help you tonight when the authorities show up, they've heard that you're talking against the emperor and against the king, and so you will be dealt with accordingly. So yes, you have freedom of speech. Go on and shoot your mouth off and watch what's going to happen to you and your family. So I'm smart enough to know, I understand, the more we change, the more we stay the same. In America, you have a freedom of speech as long as you know what you can say in public. And if you say something you're not supposed to know in public, you will be dealt with accordingly as immediately. So I've already been there. I've already had the threats. I've already had the knocks on the door at 2 o'clock in the morning. I've already been there. I know what the threats are, and so it's just unfortunate how much the public will never know and never
because
be
of
privy
that.
to know.
When you began operating, Jordan, and writing and reading and talking about the stuff that you did, what always fascinates me is you were much more vulnerable back then when there was no internet and when there was no social media where you could sound the alarm, even using your phone. You couldn't really sound the alarm. It's interesting today, we've seen cases where people are going to be evicted from their house, but because they get on social media quickly, big crowds turn up and prevent the banks or a bailiff or a sheriff acting illegally and taking people's houses. It's a wonderful thing. You didn't have that protection. I'll tell you what is interesting, you talking about people getting... And just to absolutely illustrate what Jordan is talking about, we live in Britain. Last week, a child was taken away from a Muslim family because a judge ruled that her father was possibly radicalising the child by showing the child materials online, jihadist materials. And this happened in England in the secret family courts. They turned up and took the child away. Now, I don't know if the father was showing the child this or that. I have no idea. But this is how it works. Exactly what Jordan is talking about there. They turn up, we're having your child. We're taking your child. Don't like it? Tough. That's it. That's the world we're living in, Jordan.
Well, I know. And there's a reason why they can legally take your child. There is an actual lawful legal reason why that the government can come in and take your son or daughter or, put you in jail or do with you and your family any way they wish. There's a legal reason why. And it's not just because it's government. No. There's let me go back and say it this way. I think I said to you before on your program, but I think it bears saying it again. I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about when I speak about hidden knowledge. If you had a 2-story building and you were going to put a lot of weight on the second floor, like printing presses and books and heavy stuff on that second floor, the smart thing to do is to go downstairs first, get on a ladder with a building inspector and go up and remove the ceiling tiles from the first floor and look at the foundation that you're going to put that weight on. Look at the foundation and see if it's going to hold that kind of weight. Well, what you're doing is you're now standing under the foundation you're going to build on. And that's why we say you now have understanding, because you're standing under the foundation to see what it's going to, if it's going to hold that kind of weight. So to understand means to go down beneath the surface. Just because you have freedom of speech, you better understand and go down and see what the real laws say. and find out what's actually happening and how this world really works, not how you thought it worked. And so I've said this to you many times. I've said it to many times on the radio. Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. That's why so many people today in all countries, but especially in Europe and America, are in trouble because they do not understand their government. They do not understand commerce, banking, religion, government. They do not understand how the world actually, in fact, works. It is an arcane subject. It is very well hidden. And you are you're on dangerous territory when you begin telling the people how their government actually, in point of fact, was founded, how it actually, in point of fact, is provable, how it works. It has nothing to do with anything you've ever been told before. So that's why I'm saying it's very, very difficult and very dangerous to tell the people the truth about the world they live in, because nothing works the way you think it does.
And is it fair to say then that when I hear criticism of the independent media sometimes, I hear people saying, the independent media, they're always telling you how bad the world is. They don't come up with solutions. But I always respond to that and I say, well, look, if you don't understand, to quote you, Jordan, if you don't really understand how it works and how they're doing what they're doing, you can't really talk about solutions. You have to, first of all, really understand the problem. And I think most people, including myself, and I include myself in this, we still don't fully get it. I think you do. I think David does. I think one or two others do. I think you've seen the precipice. You've looked into the abyss, I think. I really do believe that about you. But I haven't, Jordan. I'm a 40-year-old guy who's been on this journey only a few years. I don't know what you know. And I don't understand the nature fully of what's going on. But I need to understand it before you can start looking at solutions. What do you think?
Well, yeah, you're right. But again, I would say, I could meet with you in a bar somewhere and sit and have a drink with you and tell you many, many things that could get me in trouble. But I could tell you some secrets about the world you live in that you have never heard before and how the world really works. But if I go out publicly and talk about that, I now am in trouble. And keep in mind another thing, that if I go out and I tell people something I really know that's not supposed to be talked about, it will make an interesting program, maybe very, very volatile, very controversial radio show. But 1 week from that radio show, most people are never going to think about anything I said. It may just be in the back of your mind, something I said caught your interest. But you go on with life. Well, that's fine. Everybody goes on and ultimately forget all about what I was saying. But I am in prison. I'm the one that shut my mouth off. I'm the one that's going to pay the price. My children, my wife, my family, my biological family, I'm going to pay the price. You may just forget all about it in about a week or two and go on with your life, but my life is through, finished, washed up, and done. You shut your mouth off and talked about things you were not supposed to talk about to make a very interesting program, and everybody heard you and they were very interested in what you were saying, but they go on with their life. But you're not going on with nothing. You're going to prison. And it will be at 2 o'clock in the morning, and nobody will ever know where you went. Nobody will ever find out what happened to you. But you will be taught a lesson. You don't talk about certain things that are going on in this world, period.
And I know you've put up with some shit over the years. I know. I've seen it. The crap you've put up with and the threats and all of that. And to your credit, you play it down a lot of the time because you don't want to be sounding like you're, I have a persecution complex. And that's to your credit that you play it down. But this man, folks, I know this because I've seen it. I've seen materials. I've seen documents. I've seen what they've tried to do to Jordan Maxwell over the years. Look at what they did to David. Look at what they did to David's children in England. Look at them following David's children around in the playgrounds, Gareth and Jamie and Kerry, and mocking them. You know, they didn't kill David Icke, they didn't kill Jordan Maxwell, but they went out to completely destroy their credibility and humiliate them. That's what they do, these people. You know, and they don't do it to the likes of me, you know, lowly presenters. We get away with doing these programs, and I think that's what you're hinting at, and you're right. You know, we do this stuff, we interview people like you, and at the end of the day, much as I love you, mate, and I really do, and I love David, tomorrow I'll be talking to somebody else. It's not that I won't be thinking of you, I will be, but I'll be talking to somebody else. Yeah, it was brilliant what Jordan said last night. It's very important. Now I'll talk to somebody else. You guys have had to live with it for years, right. And for you, 50 years you've been living with this. And I totally understand that, you know. It's to your credit that you keep doing.
But, you know, if you know something that you're not supposed to know about the mafia, or you happen by chance, unfortunately, happen to have been in a place where you saw something as an eyewitness that could get you killed, and then you go out on the radio and they ask you to talk about it, and you talk about it, and you're telling everybody what you saw. It sounds like very good radio, very interesting radio, a lot of interesting questions, etc. But when the radio show is over, so are you. You know too much, and you're going to be dealt with immediately. And so, like I said, so everyone hearing the program will think, oh, that was a very interesting program. But 2 weeks from now, they don't remember anything about it. They go on with their life. But you're going to pay a price you cannot imagine for what you did. You talked out of school, and you told things that you were not supposed to know, and you're going to be dealt with accordingly. And so
is this a big source of frustration to you? Because I think I asked you this a couple of years ago in Spain. Did you think we'd be further on now than where we are in terms of that people would have started to take decisive action against the tyranny? And did you think we would be further along? And because we're maybe not, we're getting there maybe slowly but surely, but because we maybe haven't come as far as maybe you thought, is that a constant source of frustration to you?
Oh, God, yes. It's a profound frustration to me because, you know, as an older man, I'm living my life in total abject fear. And there's a lot of people who will say, "Oh, well, if you just give in to fear, then no. Wait till you get a knock on the door at 3:00 in the morning by federal officers, and you are faced with possibly going to prison or being taken somewhere to be dealt with quietly. You don't know where you're going, but you know something's going to be bad when you get there." And so when I have people saying, "Well, I don't go with that fear place. I don't have any fear." Well, of course you don't need to be fearing anything because you don't know nothing. You don't know anything. You're not intellectually astute enough to even know what's going on. But if the government or if certain organizations figure that you know something you're not supposed to know, you will be dealt with. They'll find your body somewhere. They'll find you hanging on the Blackfriars Bridge. Yeah. They'll find you somewhere, and you will be dealt with accordingly. And so, so when I have people say, "Well, why in the world would you have any fear?" Well, you haven't woke up yet. You haven't grown up enough to understand what the world's really like. You better check into and understand what the mafia is all about, the syndicates, the underworld organizations, the drug cartels, corruption in government and law. You better wake up and find out what the world you live in is really all about.
You know, I wonder what will it, sometimes I wonder what will it take for people to turn the television off and to go outside and stand with people. I mean, today, I'm not sure if you heard any of the first few minutes of the program, but today I was talking about open air tyranny. Completely non-disguised tyranny. We have the Minister for Welfare here. Well, he's the Minister for Work and Pensions, the Department of Work and Pensions, openly dehumanising and criminalising the sick and disabled, taking much needed help and benefits away from them, making them out to be scroungers, lazy, all of that. You have our country again bombing targets inside Syria and inside Iraq, completely illegally killing people. You talked about censorship. They're criminalising dissent in this country. They're saying now that if you're talking against the government, that non-violent extremism is just as dangerous and conspiracy theorists have to be tackled. All of this is going on in plain daylight, Jordan. And I wonder, what do people need to do to get up off their backsides and stand against them?
I got to tell you, I don't think they're ever going to. I don't think they ever have. I don't recall in history, for at least the past 6,000 years that we have some written history, I don't think the people have ever, in point of fact, rose up and demanded their rights and their freedoms and the freedom to think. I don't recall in history any time that has ever happened. Maybe a small, tiny little group caused a lot of commotion, and eventually there was some kind of a reaction by government and things changed. But I don't ever recall the people of a nation rising up and demanding their rights. It just has never happened, and it's not happening now. And I am quite sure that it's never going to happen as long as there is an earth and people on it. It's not going to happen. Generally speaking, people are lazy. They're only concerned about themselves, so they don't care. Like in Nazi Germany, the Germans don't care if the people next door happen by chance to be Jewish or happen by chance to not like Hitler, and they don't like the Nazis, and they voice that. Well, if one morning you wake up and find out the people next door were arrested last night and they're gone forever, well, thank God it wasn't me. I go along with the dictator.
Yeah.
And so thank God it wasn't me. I'll feed my friends to the alligator, hoping he'll eat me last. So I understand how people operate. I understand most people will never ever support or be a part of the people who are standing up for freedom. And as far as I'm concerned, I understand that, and I don't look for it. And since I don't get it, it doesn't surprise me.
It's no surprise to you. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to pause now for news, because we got to go to news for our syndicated partners. Jordan, you grab a coffee or a glass of water there. We're going to have about a 7-minute break, 7 or 8 minutes maximum. I'll disconnect from you and reconnect after the news, and then we'll get into some listeners' questions, because there's plenty of those. They're all interesting questions. And it's great to have you back on the show, my friend.
Thank you. Well, we'll talk later.
Talk in a few minutes. Right, we're going to pause for news. I'm going to disconnect from Jordan briefly. In the second hour then, I'm going to get into your questions. There's plenty of them. He's happy to take them. We'll do that. It's Jordan Maxwell. His website is jordanmaxwellshow.com. Any other website is no use. Don't go to any other website. Jordan Maxwell, thanks for staying with me. It's great to have you back. There you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, loads of questions. So I'm going to jump into a few questions now. I'm going to select them at random. This one came in from Sean. Richie, what does Jordan think about the Jewish control of banking, broadcasting and social trends that are enforced in Western Europe but seemingly banned in Israel, says Sean. Over to you, Jordan.
Yeah, well, that's one of the subjects I don't want to get into, because it's a bigger picture than that. It's a far, far bigger story than just the Jewish influence. And it'd take a whole show of about 3 hours just to give you the background to why I would say what I say. So I think I'll leave that to one day when I have a chance to sit down and go through this whole subject of the Jewish influence on the world, period. And it's a very, very interesting but totally different subject than what you would think you will hear. So I'm going to leave that one alone for the moment, because it really is a far bigger story than just Jewish influence on media.
I agree with you.
And banking.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I used to have arguments on Talk Radio Europe some years ago with people ringing up about, I say, look, it isn't a Jewish thing. You have to understand it's far beyond being a Jewish thing. It isn't. You say that, David says that, but people don't listen to it. I had a serious row with a guy on TV in London as well about that. Now, I'm not saying the questioner Sean believes that. I'm not saying that it's from him, but a lot of people that come on about this, their whole thing about Israel and about Jewishness is rooted in something a little bit sinister, I believe. But I agree with you. It's far, far bigger than just the Jewish thing. Israel is a terrorist state. It does terrible things. It's an evil. Their government is evil. Their prime minister is evil. But it's not about the Jewish people. It's not about that at all. Zionism is totally different.
Not at all.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've been asked to ask you about the mountains and the sun. So I'm going to scroll down. There's a question that came in earlier on. Richie says, Wayne, ask Jordan about the two mountains and the sun. Will he elaborate further for us, as then he has done so already?
Yeah, that is one of my most favorite subjects because I came across this. That's another huge subject, and I'll try and be very quick with it. 1967, I was in Glendale, California. I've heard people have heard this story maybe before, and in '67, that's a long time ago. I was in the Glendale Library doing some research on Nazism, and I looked up Russia for a moment, looked up the Soviet Union, and on the first page in the World Book Encyclopedia, it showed the national flag, the red flag, and then beneath it, it showed the coat of arms, the national coat of arms for the Soviet Union. And I had been since 1959 to 67 been studying the secret societies around the world, especially Nazism, communism, fascism, and etc. And so I was already well aware that there are certain words and terms and symbols that are being used. But it was not until I saw that first page in the World Book Encyclopedia that it hit me like a piece of piece of board falling on me. I saw something that came together for the first time, and it was the symbol of the Soviet national coat of arms that showed the sun rising behind the earth. And the caption said, it was just a couple of sentences, but the caption said, the sun rising represents the dawn of a new day for world communism taking over the earth. And that hit me because I've seen that same symbol of the sunrise, and now it opens up, and that began to open up for me a whole field of research I've been doing since 1967. And the more I look at it, the bigger it gets, the deeper it gets. It's a most phenomenal subject of the symbolism of world communism, the symbolism of the swastika and where it really came from and what it actually means, the symbols that are used in governments throughout the world. It started me thinking back in '67. And so that's a very big subject, and I'd like to be able to talk about that one day, but it's so large, it's so big, I would have to take a long time to give you all the reasons why I'm saying. That's been one of the biggest problems I have, is that I can answer something off the top of my head, but I would prefer you know why I'm saying that. I would prefer that you understand what has led me to this opinion. And so you'd have to see and follow my traipsing through all of this information and documents and government documents, research files to uncover the real symbolism behind the sun rising, but behind the mountains. It's a very, very big subject, and it goes back to Egypt. It goes back to the Egyptian peoples, to the Egyptian gods. It has to do with the way the world is controlled theologically, religiously, and financially, in commerce and government. This is a very, very ancient and very big story, and it's never been brought out into the public view ever. I tried to just touch upon it in one video I have called Dawn of a New Day, but it was a very, very poorly put together because I did it with no funding at all.
Right,
So,
right, yeah.
So, but I would love to be able to have the funding to put together something that would blow people away. If you knew how the symbols of your government, the British government, the Russian government, it's an incredible story of the hidden, powerful symbols. And we see this today, even in Los Angeles and big cities around the world. We'll see gangs, young people spray painting their symbols on buildings, etc.
Let me ask you a question, my friend. Let me just jump in there. I don't like interrupting you now, but I'm going to ask you this. I'm in Manchester, as you know, huge city in the northwest of England. There is a town 7 miles away called Stockport, Jordan. And in Stockport, a few years ago, a massive pyramid was built by a financial institution. I'm not going to say who it is. It's one of the financial institutions. It's not Price Waterhouse Coopers. In fact, I'm saying now I'm not going to say who it is, but the truth is I can't remember. Somebody's going to tell me on Twitter. Jordan, you have to see this thing. I'll try and send you a picture of it on email. Obviously not during the show, but later on. It's this big, massive glass pyramid which they dropped right in the middle of an old market town, Stockport. What is that? Why are pyramids important to them? Why do we see so many of these things?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's part of a world of symbolism that was developed thousands and thousands of years ago and has been, like the movie 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
That megalith had been around for thousands of years, maybe millions of years, but it was only until the chimps finally saw it and started to investigate it. And then it opens up a story that the world has been around for a long time. And they didn't realize what these symbols meant, and so the same thing is true with pyramids. Pyramids mean something. I mean, the very word pyramid comes from two words: pyra, P-Y-R-A. Pyra means fire. It's a word for fire, like a pyromaniac, a pyrotex. Pyra is fire, and mid means middle. The word pyramid or pyramid means the fire in the middle. That's what the word means. Pyramid, fire in the middle. Why? Because the fire of sexual generation is in the middle of the human body. In the middle of the human body are the sexual organs for the reproduction of life. Pyramid. This is why in America, I don't know about Europe, but in America, any public building you go into, and I don't care what it is, if it's a public building, the men's room will always have a triangle, a pyramid. Women's will always have a circle.
Yeah,
that's the
right.
law. Okay? The reason why is because the woman represents Stonehenge. Stonehenge is a symbol for the feminine principle. And so a woman's restroom is a circle. She keeps the circle of life going. Without her, the circle is broken. And the man is the one who, well, it's a very interesting and profoundly fascinating subject when you get into the symbolism, sexual symbolism, because, see, the man is, in sex, the man is what we call he manufactures. And the woman is in labor producing the product. And that's why you have this, the connection between the pyramid, fire in the middle, and Stonehenge. Stonehenge is directly connected to the Great Pyramid in Egypt. It's a very interesting and dark, mystical story about how the two are connected.
Yeah.
So it's again, this is something I would like to be able to do, but it would take about 3-hour video production to show you the connections, the words, the terms, and how it's on the American dollar bill. On the back of the $1 bill, you'll see the pyramid, but it's within a circle, and the reason why is the circle represents the sun. And the pyramid represents mankind building up to a peak of perfection. It's a very ancient symbolism that has been used by secret governments, secret clans and groups. And so when you have these commercial institutions building a pyramid, of course it would be commerce, because look up the word commerce.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word commerce means sex. That's what the dictionary says. Commerce is sex. It's a business, and but what I'm doing, what my life is none of your business. And if I see you with a woman and I tell you, I saw you last night with this girl and she's bad company, and you say, mind your own business, company, and then I find out you're going to get married and you're going to be partners. Yeah, partners, business, company. It's all part of something that's been going on for at least 6,000 years I know of. And the ancient peoples knew it. It's a very ancient secret on how the world really works and
That's
what the
a whole
words
show,
and terms
Jordan.
mean.
That's a whole show, isn't it?
It is
language.
a whole story.
Language is a whole show. So let me ask you this then. I've just tweeted out a photograph of this incredible glass pyramid. It's the Co-op Bank in Stockport. Now tell me this, Jordan. Is that pyramid having an effect on the people who live in that town?
Oh, heavens, yes, absolutely. Because pyramids do draw power. They influence spiritual power around you, your mind, your thinking. That's a whole story in itself, how symbols, pyramids included, Stonehenge, other monolithic structures, can actually impact your spiritual thinking. And, there's been a lot of experts talking about that kind of stuff over the years. And again, I would say on all of these subjects, I'm not the world's foremost expert on anything. It's just that I've been privileged to be in the company of experts. And somebody had said a long time ago that you don't a real expert does not need to know everything. He just needs to know where to find it if he needs it. So I've been in the company of authors and lecturers and teachers around the world and heard from extraordinary people their deep research into these things that we talk about. So I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I'm just telling you what I've heard and what I've read and what I've studied over the years.
But you're very modest now. You're very modest because what you have the ability to do is to read great swathes of information and not get, as we say in England, bogged down. You don't get bogged down, entrenched. You've got a wonderful ability to take it in, to disseminate it. And where most people kind of get overwhelmed when they start reading stuff, you don't. It's a remarkable skill, that. So you're kind of selling yourself a bit short there, my friend.
Well,
there's no two ways about that.
I appreciate your kindness, but I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. But I have always, even when I was a child, I've always been interested in all the things that are hidden knowledge, hidden words, hidden symbols, hand signs, all kinds of things which a normal person does not even see or even hear. Like the Bible says, you have eyes that do not see and ears that do not hear, and with your heart you do not get the sense of it. And so I know that there are all kinds of things going on around you. Gangs have symbols they get with their hands, and if you don't know what it means, then it might be the last thing you're ever going to do is go into a gang area, never realizing what the symbols mean and what colors mean. And so I've just made a lifetime study of all the dark secrets of the world and how things work and why they work the way they do, what the words mean. And it is an extraordinary thing to study the things which are hidden. And there's a word in Latin for hidden. It's called occult. Occult doesn't mean evil or bad or devil worship. Occult simply means hidden. Look it up in a dictionary. So I'm an occultist because all my life I have always gravitated to researching dark secrets that people don't even know exist. And I've been trying to, for many years, to try and have people wake up and just listen, just understand that there's a world going on right now around you that you are not privy to understand. You're not privy to know what those symbols mean. I watched the President of the United States making a speech, and he uses terms which are very familiar to me, which I know where they come from. I know what he's actually saying, not what you thought you heard him say.
Do you want to give a simple example there of something you heard a president say? Just give one example if you want to think of one.
Well, I've heard at least 4 different presidents. Ronald Reagan said it in his last State of the Union message. I heard Bill Clinton say it in one of his State of the Union messages. I heard the father Bush say in one of his State of the Union messages. I've heard Harry Truman say it in one of his messages. I've heard it from religious leaders, political leaders. They keep talking about that they have seen the sun rise between the 2 mountains of the east. They've seen the sun rise between the mountains of the east.
That's right.
Bill Clinton said that. Bill Clinton said, I happened to be looking and I saw the sunrise behind the mountains of the east. And I thought to myself, my God, that tells me something right there. That's a tip-off who's really working with him. I know that term. I know where it comes from. And it's a tip-off to anybody out there in radio land who knows what's going on. That's a buzzword. It's a tip-off to tell you what he's actually doing, what it's actually all about. Another classic example is when you see important people, politicians especially, wearing a red rose. My God, you see that everywhere. Do you know what a red rose means to the secret societies of Europe?
No.
And and what a white rose means when you're in Russia, and what that actually symbolizes, and what it means about you if you're caught wearing a red rose as opposed to a white one in a country like Russia today or in Europe today. What that red rose means, my God, this is very, very interesting and dark symbolism that people have no idea in the world. You think that the politicians are wearing some kind of a little insignificant something like a rose? No. That is a very important symbol.
Why now? Why is he or she? Are they communicating to one another? Then is that what they're doing?
Communicating. Yes,
right.
They're communicating.
Hence the occult, the hidden. Yeah, it's brilliant stuff, Jordan. Jordan Maxwell is on, by the way. 23 minutes past the hour. The time is flying. We're going to the top of the hour with Jordan. He's going to come back in the first week of every month, but it's going to be different when he comes back. He'll be coming on and he will have prepared a subject that he wants to talk about for that particular show. If you want to sponsor that hour, and I'm going to give that sponsorship to Jordan, contact Aaron at richieallenshow.com or drop me an email at richie@richieallenshow.com and we can talk about that. Brilliant to have him on. Couple of quick comments, Jordan. I got to, because tweets are flying in. I want to say hi to Najat in New York City. How you doing, Najat? Thanks for listening in New York. She sent a picture of the new World Trade Center tower, which is a pyramid design. It certainly is. Absolutely spot on it is. I've had emails from people as well. Lance sent me some pictures. I had an email from Dino. How you doing, Dino? Dino sent me an email with a picture of a pyramid in Canary Wharf in London. So I've got that as well. Pyramids. I don't love it at all. I don't mean I love it. But the realisation that these pyramids are having an effect on people who live around them, whether you realise it or not, that it's drawing power. When you said drawing power, Jordan, did you mean it's taking power from us? It's taking energy from us?
Well, let me say this. I'm trying to put this into words that the audience can understand. It's a very, very difficult to translate. There has been on this earth for thousands of years, and I don't know how many thousands. We know that history is far, far further back than what we think. But even within the last 6,000 to 7,000 years that I can see and read the records, there has been on this earth an overshadowing power on the earth that it dominates the whole human race. And it is a very powerful, a hidden power that's over the earth. And it will manipulate according to its own agenda. It has the ability to cause wars. It has the ability to do all kinds of powerful things, but nobody knows Nobody can nail it down where that power resides, where it operates, how it operates, but you will see it in history. You go back into the ancient Phoenician Canaanite system, you will see symbols that you use today on your money. You will see in churches symbols that were used in the ancient and prehistoric world. And then it becomes, after a while, it all becomes very obvious that there has been, since day one, a presence I refer to as a shadow over the human race, that it's the same today as it was before, as it was in the ancient history. And so that's why the Knights Templars used to say, as above, so below. There's all kinds of symbols and emblems that this power uses over the human race. And it doesn't matter which country or which peoples, it doesn't matter. It controls our world. Now, the Christians talk about the devil and demons. I understand the concept. I mean, in the Hindu, they talk about the ancient gods. All of the ancient peoples of the world talk about the space aliens or gods or you know, the other world entities. But all I'm telling you is that in point of fact, factually speaking, there has been an overshadowing of the human race by some kind of a presence that men call God. I don't know what God is, but it's not on television. But something is guiding the human race, and it's doing it in such a way, it's so perfected in what it does, that it can do it in such a way that you will never see it. But if you begin to study it, and put 24/7 studying how things work, how the banks work, how government works, how religions work, how the system of all the different governments work, then you will begin to see the faint outline of an empire that's been on the earth for thousands and thousands of years. And the more we change, the more we stay the same. We're still operating under a dark, profound, powerful, hidden presence in government, hidden presence, and it uses its own symbols. It communicates with others. It's one hell of a story, and but only until you can see it. Me talking about it is one thing, but when you see it over a 3-hour presentation, where I show you thousands of pictures of the same symbol used by all the religions of the world, governments, commerce, on your dollar bill, on your money.
It drives it home, doesn't it then? It starts to sink in then, doesn't it, really?
It's an incredible story about how the human race has been ruled in such a way that they don't even know it.
Thanks, Jordan. Dino was back on to say, with respect to Jordan talking about the politicians and why they wear a certain, coloured shirt or toy or whatever, he said, Dino was on to say, ask Jordan about why so many politicians wear red ties. Many do, he says. Colin was on to say, didn't they announce a set of 5 pyramids to be built back in the late 1980s at Brinksway in Stockport? I'll tell you what, Colin, I didn't know that, but I have no reason to doubt you at all. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We've had an email from Lawrence, who's in South Africa. And Lawrence wants to ask you about your studies of Saturn and the moon, and about the moon's influence on life on Earth. And Lawrence asks, would life be better off without the moon? So can we just take a 90-second break to satisfy a couple of our sponsors? 90 seconds only. We'll do that, and then we're back then with Jordan Maxwell, uninterrupted until we have to close the programme. Check out jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's the only website that you should be looking at for the moment. Jordan, stay with us. Very quick break, back with more from Jordan in 90 seconds. Back then.
Do you have money problems? Do you want to avoid vaccines, antidepressants, painkillers, statins, chemotherapy or worse? Sincerely, do you want to know why you've had a miscarriage? Fluoride and chemtrails calcify your spiritual pineal gland. Why don't they want you to become spiritual? Did you know birthmarks are from past lives, as are many allergies and phobias? Are you risking reincarnation by not knowing your soul contract? Do you want to get to the bottom of your spiritual experiences, including accidents? For the solution, visit healingking.com. That's healingking.com.
NeonNettle.com, a new voice in alternative media. For unfiltered news at your fingertips, visit NeonNettle.com, the UK's #1 alternative news site. In association with The Richie Allen Show. NeonNettle.com.
Do you want to know how to take your power back? How to transform your relationships, disempowering emotions and addictive behaviors into your soul's gifts of profound love and healing? Visit livingasyoursoul.com for free in-depth articles, online workshops and much, much more to find out how to live as your soul and master your power of love and healing. livingasyoursoul.com for your soul solutions.
Richie Allen.
On Talk Radio Europe, Fab Radio International, neonnettle.com and davidike.com. Check out davidike.com/headlines for all the news you need to know. Big news from David. He is nearly finished a book he's writing. I can't tell you too much about it. I have an idea of what it's going to be in it, but I can't say too much about it. It'll be finished sometime in the next few weeks, and then sometime later this year it'll be out, but more on that later on. The great Jordan Maxwell is with me. It's an absolute pleasure to have him on. Check out jordanmaxwellshow.com. Thanks for staying with me, my friend. We've got about 23 minutes left on this. What about the influence the moon has on our life, and would we be better off without the moon? It always comes up, this. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm of the opinion, I don't know, I haven't been there, but I'm of the opinion that the moon very well might be an artificial construct that was brought here, probably towed here a long time ago from somewhere out there in the universe. Somebody picked the exact size of a planet that they needed. It had to be an exact size. The moon is a profoundly important subject, and its size is of absolutely importance to understand. The size of the moon and the distance it is from the Earth is very, very important. I've heard astronauts and people working at NASA talking about it. I'm not the authority, but I know that the moon is an exact size that it's supposed to be, and it's put where it's supposed to be and does what it's supposed to do so that life can exist on the Earth. I've heard people at NASA talking about the fact that, life on the Earth would be totally different without the moon. And even Native Americans here in the States talk about the fact that there was a time when there was no moon, but that somebody brought the moon here and put it into orbit for us, so it would help us electrically and gravitationally for us to live here on the Earth. It was required that we have a moon. And of course, when you have a what do you call it, total eclipse, the moon is exactly the size of the sun. Well, that's not by chance. That's not at all by chance. That is exactly what somebody knew, and they had the measurements, and they knew it had to be a certain size, and it had to be a certain distance from the Earth. It all has to do with occult or hidden knowledge of the skies, of the heavens. It's a very interesting subject, and I love listening to people from NASA and the people that I know and some astronauts I've sat and talked with about it. And it just implies that there's a whole story about the moon you're not familiar with at all. You've never heard. And I think, from what I've heard, that the moon very well might be hollow.
Yeah,
It might have a metal superstructure. And it was brought here. One of the first things you need to look at about the moon is how come the moon looks like the ground after the Vietnam War. It looks like it's been bombed or hit by meteors, but it's everywhere, just been beaten to a pulp. We've had meteors and comets hit the Earth, or asteroids hit the Earth millions of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, whatever. But there's not that many. But there are some of the big ones, like in Arizona. But there's not that many. But the moon looks like it's been through a war. There's nothing but pot marks all over.
Craters and everything else. Yeah, that's
everything.
Right.
So where in the world was that thing to get beaten that bad?
Yeah, the moon
And,
is an amazing subject, isn't it? I mean,
it is amazing.
What about some of our listeners who subscribe to the theory that those great deceivers, our leaders, our so-called leaders, the masters of deception? What about people who think that they dreamed up the whole moon landing? What do you think is that? You don't have to go into this because it's not really that important in terms of what we're talking about right now. I suppose it is. If they faked it, it is. I don't know. I've often wondered, did they fake it? And what do you think?
Well, I mean, that Van Allen belt bothers me big time because I've heard.
Is this the radiation now we're talking about?
Yeah, well, I heard official spokesmen. It's out there on the web. One of the official spokesmen for NASA works at NASA, and he basically said that it is impossible for humans to go to the moon, period. That's what he said. And the reason why is because the Van Allen belt would fry a human. He wouldn't even get close to the moon. If you go through the Van Allen belt, the radiation is so horrible, so terrible, that he said it would fry you like a French fry. So we know that it's very dangerous, and you cannot send a human through the Van Allen belt. I don't care what you send him with. Well, that bothers me because because I had heard that before. But here is an official from NASA, and just off the cuff, making that statement. No, if we sent a human out into the Van Allen belt, it would fry him like a French fry instantly. Yeah. So there's no possible way we could get him through. Well, if you can't get a human through the Van Allen belt, airhead, then how come we are told that we went to the moon? You got to go through the Van Allen belt, and you just said that's impossible to do.
I love Bart Sibrel, the guy who got punched by Neil Armstrong. Bart has been on several shows with me, and he's a lovely man, Bart. He's a decent man, very softly spoken guy. He made the documentary A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. Bart is convinced that they faked it, and like I said, he's lovely. He's great company on the radio, and he's got all the stories about why he thinks it was faked. And he asked Neil Armstrong so many times at so many different conventions that eventually Armstrong punched him in the mouth. I think because but I believe that even if they did fake it, I believe that Armstrong and Aldrin probably believed they were there. I think if you're going to fake something like that, you're going to convince the actors involved that they were really there. Cause it makes sense, doesn't it, Jordan? They need to believe they were there. If
you remember back, it's called Diamonds Are Forever, the James Bond movie.
Yes.
I think it was called Diamonds Are Forever, the James Bond movie with Sean Connery.
Yep.
And in it, Sean Connery, James Bond finds himself in Las Vegas, and he's out in the desert of Las Vegas at this big spaceport thing that's built out there, and he breaks in, and in the movie he's on the set where the astronauts are supposedly walking on the moon, and he gets into the moon cart and drives it on the set. Well, I don't know what that's telling us.
Are they telling us something? Yeah.
That's
right. Isn't it funny you just mentioned James Bond? There must be something in the air, because Wayne tweeted, ask Jordan about the original 007 who worked for Elizabeth Tudor and his deal with a higher intelligence. The original 007. Again, this is all new to me. Do you have anything to say about that?
The 007 comes from England. Back in the 17th century, 18th, somewhere back then, there was an occultist, a very famous man. I think it was Robert Flood, if I'm not mistaken, which was a very powerful mystic occultist who was an advisor to the Queen. He was advisor to the royalty in England. He read tarot cards and did all these magical and mystical things. And when he would write to the Queen, answering her question as to what she should do about this or that, well, Robert Flood would write back, and I think it was Robert Flood. But anyway, this individual who was a counselor to the Queen, he would write back and answer her, and he would sign it 007, 007. There was a reason for that, and because this mystic who was advisor to the royalty of England, called himself 007. They got that from him. And there's a reason why he picked those numbers, 2 zeros and a 7. I don't want to get into it too deeply, but that's what he's talking about. That's what your caller is talking about.
No, couple of different people on the whole space thing. JP listens in Manchester. As NASA and Russia gear up for disclosure, JP says that he knows of 6 species of alien or extraterrestrial, but he mentions Paul Hellyer, which is a very interesting story. Some of our listeners might not remember. Paul Hellyer is a former Canadian defence minister, and some time ago he spoke with Russia Today, and he said seriously and sincerely, he wasn't joking, that there were 80 different species of alien, and that some of them look just like us, would walk down the street and you wouldn't even know it. What did you make of that at the time when Hellyer...
I've heard that same thing from people in government myself here. I've sat in Pasadena one night. Many years ago, I sat at a dinner with a lot of public speakers and authors and lecturers and teachers and government officials, and I happened to be privy to be able to be there. And I heard them talking about the different alien races which are here. And some of them look exactly like us, but they cannot do certain things we can do. And I remember the one guy talking about the fact that they cannot do certain things that we can do. And that's how you can tell them that they're not fully human, is because we can do certain things they can't do, and we can eat certain things they cannot eat. And so that's one of the things that the government uses to know, what they're dealing with. They'll give them something to eat that they can't eat, and that tells you something. Or the alien cannot do something that another human can do. So, I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories over the years, but I think there is something to that because I've heard it from too many people.
Fair enough. Here's the question. You'll know that every day goes by here in Britain, more and more information comes out about VIP child abuse committed by paedophile rings, including very, very prominent and important people. You'll know this. Now, here's a question from Martin Noakes, really good friend of the programmes, really good guy, Martin. What does Jordan think about... I'm going to be cheeky, Martin. I'm not going to read your question out word for word. I'm going to change it slightly.
Certain things you can't say.
Well, it's not so much that I can't say them, but I am broadcast by commercial radio stations, and I made certain promises to those stations that I would be diplomatic about certain things. But everybody's going to know what I'm getting at anyway. What does Jordan think about the fact that so many alleged paedophiles or proven paedophiles have very close links with the British royal family? What do you think about that? Is it a coincidence that the British royal family have been very close to Jimmy Savile and others, including former, home secretaries here, former prominent politicians and others, Rolf Harris and others? What do you think of that, about their connection to people whom we know have committed sex abuse? There you go. That's as diplomatic as I can be.
Yeah. I think that story tells itself, and I don't think I feel up to answering that, but I think the story as he outlined it, I think it tells you something already. I don't,
Yeah.
I think it already tells you something's going on, but I'm not going to comment on that.
I always say that people are innocent until proven guilty, no matter who they are. Now, I mean, I detest the royal family. I detest what they stand for. As an Irishman, of course I would. I absolutely despise them. I'm a guest in this country. They're not my royal family, but I can't stand them. I can't stand what they represent and what they've done over the years and what they're probably still doing. As for their proximity to child molesters, yes, they have questions to answer. Martin is absolutely right. Have they ever done anything? I don't know if they've ever done anything. I do know that Kevin, Annette and others are asking questions about children in Canada many decades ago that went missing, that were taken out of homes. And these are serious questions, and I totally agree with that. But what they have and haven't done, I don't know. But they're despicable people. Let's be honest about it. And I'm not chickening out on this one. It's just we have responsibilities. But Martin Noakes, I hear you loud and clear, my friend. Carl was on to say, he's in Australia. Jordan, about the astronaut stuff, have you ever looked into how many of the Apollo astronauts from the different Apollo programs got cancer? Is that anything you're aware of?
Yeah, that's the funny thing in America. If you know too much, you get cancer. You know, that's the cancer syndrome. Everybody gets cancer 20 minutes after they say something. They all of a sudden have cancer and die immediately. I know that all smells very bad to me. I know that people. That's why I was saying originally when we first talked. I know that there, and you have freedom of speech. Well, go on out and talk. And if you are important and people are listening to you, well, you might get cancer and die within the next 3 days. And you were perfectly well, and then all of a sudden you're dead. So it tells you something.
Jordan, it's funny you say that. Barry Trower, Dr. Barry Trower, who's one of the world's leading experts in microwave and Wi-Fi technology. A lovely fella as well. Jordan, he was on the programme last week, Barry, or the week before. For listeners missed it, it's on YouTube. Go to the Richie Allen Show on YouTube. As will Jordan's chat with me be on YouTube tomorrow. It'll also be podcasted later on and all of that. But Barry was saying that he actually worked for the Navy for years developing microwave weapons. Do you know what he said, Jordan? Yes, for years now they've been targeting people that they want to get rid of by using this technology to give them cancers. It's as simple as that. And there's a lot of people who believe that people like Hugo Chavez and others are absolute examples of people who've been targeted using this technology. I doubt you'll find any of that new or surprising. You've known that for a long time, I guess.
Yeah, well, I just know that in this world, no matter where you are on the earth, if you know something you're not supposed to know and you talk about it, you're a dead man. I know that. I've understood that for a long time. It's true in Japan, it's true in Russia, it's true in Africa, it's true all over the world. If you know something you're not supposed to know, and if they find out that you know, then then you're going to be dead somehow.
How did you avoid that fate then? Is it because, and I've asked David this before, is it because you got very well known very quickly? Was that the reason?
Well, it's very simple. If you are well known and people know you and people respond to your name and they want to hear you, and if you are now using that celebrity to talk about things you're not supposed to, that gets to a lot of people very quickly because you're well known, you're famous and you're well known, and people will listen. If somebody off the street says that on a talk show, talks about something that's very, very volatile and important, that's marginal. Nobody's going to know who he is. Nobody cares. It was just his thought. But if you get somebody very famous saying it, no, that's different. Now you're attracting a lot of people with information you're not supposed to. So I think it depends on the person, how famous they are and how important they are and how well liked they are as to what you can and cannot say. But I've known for a long time there are many things I can't say. But then on the other hand, there's many things I'd like to be able to say, but it's going to take time. I'd like to get into words, for instance. That's one of my most favorite subjects is just words. Where did we get words from, and how do you come up with a word? Well, you spell it. So the implication is it's a spell that's put on you with a word. Well, we know that's the way mind control works, is that certain words will trigger you to do things. So that's why if you're going to come up with a word, you have to spell. Why do we call it a spell?
Because
we're putting a spell on you, And
that's something you might want to get into on the first program in a couple of weeks when you come back. And I mean, it's entirely up to you, and you'll be planning out what it is you want to talk about. Just a couple of tweets came in. I want to say hi to Gio. How you doing, Gio? And thanks for the kind words about the program. It's lovely to have guests. Like, it's easy to do radio when you're talking to the people who come on this show, particularly Jordan. Very easy to do. It really is. She asks, what about Tesla and the pyramids and free energy? That's a huge subject, Jordan, isn't it?
Yep,
Technology that they've kept hidden from us. You've been all over that for years.
Yep, all of it. I've been involved in hearing all the best of the best in that whole area of free energy and the Nazi bell and all the occult research that's been done by the government behind governments, the secret government, the shadow government. A classic example is in here in the States, in Nevada, we have something called Area 51. Area 51 is on the Nellis Air Force range here just outside of Las Vegas, about 2-hour drive north of Las Vegas. It's an area called Area 51. And but it is not secured. The security for Area 51, even though it's on an Air Force base, has nothing whatsoever to do with the U.S. government at all, period. It's a privately owned security, and they can do whatever they please to do. They're not confined by federal laws at all, which tells me that the Air Force has nothing really to do with Area 51 at all. It is a shadow government that controls Area 51. That's a shadow security. It has nothing to do with the U.S. government, period. So there's a lot of strange things going on in America that the U.S. government has nothing whatsoever to do with. So it implies that there's a power above the U.S. government that calls the shots. Well, my God, we've been talking about that for years, you know.
Absolutely, for years. We're just about up on time for this episode. You've been listening to Jordan Maxwell. His website is jordanmaxwellshow.com. He will be getting his old website back and everything. That's all great news. Now, in the first week of every month from now on in, as long as Jordan wants to do it, he's going to come on and spend the show with me, and each one he's going to be getting into a subject that he wants to get into. So what I've decided to do is we're going to put that show up for sponsorship. What that means is basically we'll put your company name on that particular program. It will be the Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com, but that night it will be brought to you by whomever, and we'll get a jingle made up for it and all of that, so you'll have your name on, and that will be on the podcast as well and on the YouTube video. The purpose of that being is that whatever we agree in terms of the and it won't be that expensive at all, but we'll give it to Jordan. It's as simple as that, and that'll help him with his lawyer bills, and because I imagine they're extensive. They always are. Lawyers aren't cheap no matter where you are in the world. So we'll do that. And I think the first of those shows, those special shows, will be in a couple of weeks' time when Jordan will be back. In the 2 minutes we have left, my friend, do you want to say anything before we finish up for tonight? It's been great having you back on.
Well, thank you very much. Always appreciate you and what you do. I would just say that if you go on my website, the Jordan Maxwell Show, and keep in mind that jordanmaxwell.com has been taken from me. So if you get any emails from jordanmaxwell.com, it's not from me. So don't contact me through jordanmaxwell.com. Go to my website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. And I'm in the middle of a fight for my life and my property and my work. I'm trying to get it back. So if there's anyone who would like to help, I've got a donation button on the website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. Appreciate any help at this moment in time when I'm fighting for getting my life back and getting everything that's been taken from me. It's because I've got a lot of things I want to talk about. I'm thinking about doing a research society or a research newsletter or something where I can talk about the things I want to in private to people who want to know, and because I know it's dangerous talking to the public as such. So I'm going to put together something that has to do with a private research group, and you have to email and join the group, and then I can dispense all kinds of information that I'm not allowed to talk about on the air. So that's something I will be working on, and you'll hear from me if you will email me. So just go on my website, jordanmaxwellshow.com, and email and say you want to be on my mailing list, you want to be a part of the the research group or whatever. And if you email that show, I'll get it, and I'll get back to you. And so I want to start getting busy again once I get my website back and my products and my life and everything else that was taken from me. I have a lot of things I want to do. I'm 75. I'm not getting any younger. I've gone through many years of financial elder abuse and all kinds of abuse, but I have some very important things I want to give the audience before I leave here.
That's brilliant, and that won't be for a long time. Look, that's it for the moment. We've got to get out now. Always a pleasure, mate. Thanks again for coming on. Look after yourself. I'll be in touch with you tomorrow, of course, and we'll square away you coming back on a fortnight from now. JordanMaxwellShow.com it is. Brilliant, my friend. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day there in California.
Oh, thank you very much, and we'll be talking soon. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Jordan Maxwell on the line to us from California. JordanMaxwellShow.com, I'll say again. That is it for the programme.